Welcome to this next tutorial on Adobe Premiere. In this tutorial we will be discussing the interface of Adobe Premiere. Now, there's lots of different configurations. I'm just going to focus on the basics to help us get familiar with the program and so we can get started editing quickly. I'm going to go ahead and jump into Adobe Premiere. And depending on the configuration of how big your laptop is, the screen size that you may be working on, your windows may be in a slightly different order. I'm going to go over what each window does and how we can move them around to best fit the way we would like to work. Adobe Premiere has 4 major window areas. We've got our project window area over here. We've got our source monitor, our program monitor, and our timeline. We also have our toolbars and audio meters. I want to start by discussing the project window. As we talked about when we were importing our media, our project window is where all of our media, clips, and assets get stored. You can see I've got bins here with footage in them. Notice the icons because they'll help you as you start to get more familiar. Video and audio will have an icon like this. Some media may just be audio and have an icon like this. Some media may just be video and will only be represented by a film strip. Another icon to become very familiar with is the sequence icon. Touring around this project window, let's start at the bottom. Here we can see the different types of view. Currently I'm in list view. We can switch over to icon view. Next to that is our dimension slider. If I go to list view, I can also increase the dimensions. I've got my find command. Lets me find items that may be in my bin if I've got lots of complex sequences. Next to that, I've got my create new bin icon. This lets me create a new bin or a new folder that I can then label timelines. Next to that is our create new item. If I click on that, I'll get a box that lets me create new sequence, offline file, bars and tone, lots of different options of creating some new elements that I may need. If I want to create a new sequence, maybe in my project I'm working on a package, a VO, and a SOT. I may want to have 3 different timelines that I could be working on. I'm going to create a new sequence. When I click that, I get my new sequence. Make sure I'm on my custom setting. And I can name my sequence Police VO. Another way of creating sequences or items is I can click anywhere in this blank space, do a right click, and I'll get my new item. You can see sequence. A third way would be to go up to File and New, and I can create a new sequence there. One last item that we can do in our project window is if we already have a sequence or another piece of video or a graphic that we'd like to duplicate and reuse without destroying the original, I can right-click on anything. In this case, I'll right-click on my story and say duplicate. And from there, I can then call this my police SOT. And this new timeline will inherit all of the edits that were in the previous timeline. Moving on in the project window, I have my Media Browser tab, which we discussed earlier on the import, which lets us view our various different types of media that we could import, whether it be local drive, network drive, or a card from our camera. The next tab would be our Effects tab. This is where you'll find your video transitions, audio transitions, and video effects for color correcting or stylizing our project. One thing to note in the Effects window is we can come up to the search bar and start typing in the effect we're looking for. In this case, I'm looking for a dissolve. And you see it'll populate it with just the items that are named dissolve. I can then take a dissolve and drag it on top of the video that I'd like. We have lots of other tabs that we don't need to worry about within this tutorial. There are libraries, info, markers, and history. But if you find yourself in this situation where you cannot see the tab that you were trying to get back to, we've got this double arrow we can click on and shows us all of the hidden tabs. Click back on my project window, and there we are. Moving on, we have our source window, and this will show us any video source that we may have loaded up from our project. I can go here to my footage and double click on a piece of media and pull it up and look at it. I can view it, hit spacebar to play, or use any of the tools down here to mark in a clip, to mark out a clip, to go to my endpoint, to step back one frame, to play my clip, to step forward, to go to my out, or to insert or override this clip into my sequence. Also within this source window, you will see effects control, our audio clip mixer, some metadata of our clip. We'll go over in detail what these items do in a later tutorial. Our program window will show us what is happening in our timeline and the ultimate output of our program. We also have similar tools that we had in our source monitor that we can use. Lastly, we have our sequences or timelines. And this will be the representation of all of our edits. Notice in my timeline is tabs, so I can jump quickly between the different projects I may be working on. Lastly, we have our toolbars and our audio meter. A couple of things to know about the interface of Adobe Premiere. Every window is resizable. By hovering to the edge of each clip, we can change the size and dimension of the window to fit whatever preference we may like. We can also grab a tab if we click and hold and drag. We can drag it to different locations on our project. And move my project window down here into my timeline. And I can move it back. Lastly, we have a couple of these quick menus which will reorganize our interface for different tasks. Assembly, audio, metadata logging. If you ever find yourself in a weird configuration that you don't like, generally go back to your editing workspace. Another item to be aware of is if you accidentally close a window. If I take my project window and pull it out and accidentally close it. If I can't see it anymore, or I can't find it anywhere within my tabs, I can always go to Windows, click on my one that I'm looking for, and drag it back where it needs to go. I hope this tutorial has helped you get better acquainted with the Adobe Premiere interface.